This week on Dan Really Likes Wine, I'm dealing with a fierce breeze coming in off the ocean. I am dealing with planes arriving every 3 minutes to drink South African wine and find great meals. And I'm dealing with a very enthusiastic team of winemakers who all want to feed me with great Durbanville Hills wine. But you know what? I'm strong and I'm tough and the wine's pretty good, so I reckon I'll survive. So this vast cavern of winemaking brilliance is the home to one of South Africa's most iconic brands in terms of Durbanville Hills. Pinot Course, it's a place I've been a number of times before, and the same thing fascinates me every time I come here. You know, you've got this amazingly big space with I don't know how much wine. You can probably tell me. How do you manage to take all of this wine and not just keep it being decent wine, but in many cases make it marquee wine, make it really high quality wine?
It's a very well thought out cellar. It's a very modern cellar. It works very easy.
Kobus, how much wine is there actually surrounding us here?
Well, if you look at just these tanks, it's 50,000 liters. We actually call this the Golden Mile because that's where the Durbanville Hills Sauv Blanc is made. But in total, if you look at a cellar, about 4.8 million liters that we can do here.
That is a huge amount of wine. How on earth do you manage to keep an eye on what is where, how old it is, how it's looking? That's a 24-hour-a-day job.
Yeah, it is. I think the best part is every morning we actually taste all these wines, and that's great because then you can make your real-time decisions.
You have a Sauvignon Blanc that is so familiar to many. It is illegal in Johannesburg to not have Durbanville Hills Sauvignon Blanc on a wine list. Do you set out, particularly at that more approachable price point of each year, Durbanville Hills Sauvignon Blanc has a particular style, or is there an element, even at this scale, to which vintage can still play a part?
I think vintage definitely play a part, but what is so nice about the whole range of Durbanville Hills is that we've got 3 different ranges for 3 different, let's say, times, consumers. The Durbanville Hills range is the main thing there is consistency. We're going to try each year to keep the quality, to keep the profile 99.9% the same. But when we get to the collectors, it's a totally different story. There we're looking at different soils, different sites, age of vineyards. We're pushing the boundaries with the collectors and even the Tangram.
Kobus, if I look at one of the big challenges South African wine has had internationally, we've done ourselves a disservice often by being too good at too low a price point, which often makes it harder to lift that price point. When you've got this extraordinarily good value Sauvignon Blanc that the world loves, how challenging is it then to set a wine above that when many people kind of know your wine here and go, but hang on, this is Durbanville Hills, why should it be up there? How challenging is that?
Actually, we go out a lot into the market. We get a lot of people visiting the cellar as well, and they can show them and they taste it. And when they see the difference and we explain what we actually do in the cellar, then they understand. And at the end of the day, there's definitely a huge difference. So you're catering for both palates.
When you're making a Tangram, for me as a non-winemaker, well, that's a more expensive wine. It's been around for longer. That must be more difficult to make. But then I backtrack and thinking, well, hang on, you're also trying to make 1 million litres of Sauvignon Blanc in a style that's all the same. So what is the greater challenge for you as a winemaker?
The challenge obviously will be more on the collector's reserve, the Tangram. We've got a small cellar inside this bigger cellar. And we've got all these barrels, we've got amphoras, we've got all the equipment, so we can actually make exactly what a small estate can do, we can do.
Yes, you've got a very big commercial operation, but there is that mad scientist element where you do like to play around a bit, you do like to experiment, partly to keep up with trends and what's changing, but also I think every winemaker at heart has got that desire to push boundaries and to explore.
No, for sure. If you're only going to make just bulk wine every day into the same style, it's going to be boring and you're going to lose your creativity. So we've got really the opportunity to think out of the box. We can use different vessels, stainless steel, amphoras, barrels. Even this year we brought in some foudre for the red wine. We've got amphoras made from different mediums, just to see what the effect is on there. So yes, definitely, you have to push boundaries.
Before I get a sense of the 25 vintage, because I know we're going to be tasting some of that, there are many people in my hometown of Johannesburg who firmly believe that it's not a vintage, it is a use by date and we must drink it immediately without taking away the joy of people who like a Sauvignon Blanc that is 2 to 3 hours old. What would your suggestion be to the white wine drinker general, the Sauvignon Blanc drinker in particular, in terms of getting the very best out of a Durbanville Hills bottle?
Due to our climate, our grapes take a little bit longer than other areas to ripen. And it's exactly the same with fermentation, and a little bit longer on the lees, just to get that round, that fullness and all the flavor in there. So let's look around about end of May on the shelves, I would say, Cobus?
Yeah,
more or less.
June.
But I think the big thing is patience. All good things come with time.
I'm going to be tasting some of the wine very shortly, but not just the Sauvignon Blanc. It is an opportunity, Cobus, to just remind people that as good as the Sauvignon Blanc is here, and as much as it is a Durbanville Hills signature, this is an estate that is more than just Sauvignon Blanc.
No, for sure. I mean, we make a Chenin, we make an MCC, we make Chardonnay, we've got a white blend, we've got sparkling wine, so we've got a range. And I mean, I'm talking about rich wine. Then we've got a brandy, which a lot of people don't know about, which is actually made from Merlot grapes. So yeah, there's a lot of variety. We actually got wine for each palate in South Africa.
All of this talk of wine has made me rather thirsty, so let's say goodbye to the cellar, go and find some glasses, and do some very important research. As iconic views from South African wineries go, this one is pretty hard to beat. Table Mountain broadly over my very similarly granitic kind of shoulders, giving this beautiful backdrop to some wine that has become some of South Africa's most iconic, in particular a Sauvignon Blanc that is one of the great wines of South Africa as a success story. And the man who gets to oversee all of this and put his feet up on a daily basis looking out at Table Mountain is the big boss. Albert, it's lovely to be back here in this beautiful space. Do you ever tire of this view?
No, I think it'll be a sin if you get tired of this. So yeah, count my blessings every day. I walk up to that little window there every day and just took a 2-minute breather.
And it's a winery that has a story that people, I think, feel has been around with us forever, but Durbanville Hills is not actually that old, which makes the degree of success that you've had all the more remarkable.
Yeah, I think you need some luck, but the harder you practice, the luckier you get. So first vintage cellar was built in 1998, first vintage in 1999. Martin Moore, who's not with us anymore, made amazing wines, and we won double golds at Veritas. Salesforce fell in love with the brand, consumers fell in love with it, and as you say, it's a wine we would like to see everywhere in South Africa on a wine list.
Martin, who we remember fondly, was not just a great winemaker, he was also chronically incapable of stopping talking. We had many long conversations that never seemed to end, but they all came back down to this love of wine that he had and that is still showcased in this space that wasn't just chosen for a beautiful view. There's a lot more to the choice of this site in terms of the wine that you wanted to make and the wine that you continue to make. Location
is everything. You cannot make great wine with inferior quality grapes. The Atlantic Ocean here in our background, you have the False Bay on the other side, about 7 to 9 kilometers this way. And what we get is we get this cooling breezes like we can feel right now, coming in through the valley, cooling down the grapes, giving us longer hang time, developing flavors. And the beautiful part of that is that you don't have to rush to harvest when you get the 2 or 3 or 4 days of real heat, because you will still have this Cape Doctor as well as a southwesterly wind coming in, cooling down the grapes, meaning that your grapes can phenolically ripen, and not only your sugar levels that ripens. And that's the story. Fertile soil, about up to 380 meters above sea level, surrounded by 2 water masses. Amazing farmers that really have a passion for growing quality grapes, and that's where it starts.
The breeze you speak of is obviously playing havoc with our hair, so we've had to have 3 stops already for makeup to come in, but it is a breeze that gives that distinctive feel to the Sauvignon Blanc, and yet it's not just all about Sauvignon Blanc, and the risk when you do one thing so well is that other things you also do well tend to fall a little in the shadow. But this is a valley, and I'm getting the sense more people are discovering this, where it's not just other white grapes, but there are also some fine red wines made here as well.
Yeah, interesting enough, our second biggest seller is, of all the products in the range, is Merlot. Very distinct notes that you associate with cool climate with. If you think of Merlot from Durbanville, you'll get that mintiness, but with the natural great red grape fruits that goes with that.
Well, thankfully you've got a fabulous restaurant here, so the hunger that you've already elicited in me can be sated in the next little while with some great wine and some great food. and some great conversation. And it's a conversation I've had a number of times with friends in the wine industry, with just people who enjoy wine, and they've asked me a question which is very relevant to Durbanville Hills at the moment. When we first met, Durbanville Hills was still part of the great Distell empire. Times have changed, now forms part of Heineken South Africa. How much has that changed what you do? How much has that impacted on your business here at Durbanville Hills?
I think we're all in the learning phase from all sides. Formally working almost for a year together now, there's a very clear strategy from Heineken's side. The Heineken family a couple of years sat down and said, we cannot touch all the touch points and occasions with beer only. And they wrote a strategy that says the world beyond beer, where wine, ciders, etc. are all part of the new way forward.
Well, I think there's a lovely juxtaposition in that I'm not sure I know a winemaker who doesn't start her or his evening with a cold beer just to clear the palate after a day in the cellar before moving on to wine. So beer and wine do have a history of coming together. The fact that you've now got this huge organisation, clearly with a genuine belief in what you do.
Yes, no, 100%. I remember the days when I started working here, beer were banned. You were not allowed to serve a beer. I think things changed. We realized that the world is bigger than just, you can do better if you put things together and make them work together, like start an afternoon with a beer and swing over to the wine side. And I think we're going to see amazing things happening in the next 5 years around the total portfolio and how do we make it so attractive for consumers.
Well, we've already had a dozen or so international flights go past us just in the last 10 minutes, all I think landing in search of Durbanville Hills wine. It really does look like a very, very fun time ahead for you. Best of luck with it. While you get back to your spreadsheets, I'm going to head into the cellar because I've got some important work to do with the winery.
Someone's got to do the real work.
Durbanville Hills and Albert, it's looking like good times ahead, but how's the wine? Time to find out. One of the great joys of wine is that every vintage is different and every bottle keeps changing, and that sense of evolution begins from the very first day the grapes are picked, which makes this, for a wine geek like myself, a really exciting time because Cobus Wilhelm, this is the brand new vintage. This is the 2025 vintage, which your colleague Albert told me is the single greatest vintage in the history ever, which is what he told me last year and the year before and the year after. But this does seem to be a really good vintage. What's making 2025 so exciting?
I think when we taste in the cellar, definitely there's definitely a lot of mouthfeel. The flavors are there. There's a lot of tropical fruit. There's some greener flavors coming through. But the thing that stands out for me specifically on the whites is the mouthfeel, definitely.
Wilhelm, the reds?
Color. We got a lot of color this year, and like Cobus said, mouthfeel. It's the crop aren't that big, but the quality is great.
All right, well, I'm really excited to try these, and this is the stage that you guys go through all the time. For most people, these might look like a couple of seducers that we've pulled out of our local Woolworths or Pick and Pay, but they're actually wines in the early stage. So we've got here some Sauvignon Blanc. As you pour this, tell me kind of where we are, why it's so cloudy, why this wine looks as it does, Cobus.
Sure. So this is a Sauvignon Blanc 2025. The reason why it looks so cloudy is because it's just been racked last week Friday so it's now off the gross lease on its fine lease. This specific one will spend at least 9 to 10 months on the lease.
Now often this is wine at a stage where it could almost be in bottle already. 2025, we are used to some Sauvignon Blanc being produced so early. You're not that with this, you want to give this some more time.
Yeah, this needs time. This will develop with time. As it stays on the lease, the yeast cells will die, it will open up and will release all those proteins and manoproteins that give you the fullness. So we want to do that with this one.
All right, so there we go. That's an early taste of 2025. This also says 2025, but it doesn't look quite the same colour. As you pour this one, what's different here, of course?
The difference here is it's obviously a different block. So this is a block that was planted in 1983. It's bush wine. And the big difference is this one is actually an amphoras.
And already there's just a little bit more precision to it. You can feel the wine is heading towards its destination. We are teed down. We then head away, and this is something I'm really interested in because we've had a number of conversations, Cobus, around Chenin Blanc. Yes. You do the Sauvignon so well that sometimes people forget this is actually the home to some wonderful Chenin Blanc as well.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, this Chenin is Clan Roosman Block 8. What we did, we actually started in the vineyards, and I think it is. All good wine starts in a vineyard. So what we did here, we actually opened up the vineyards at a very, very early stage. And when you actually smell this wine, you can smell that tropical fruit coming through. It's abundance of ripe guava, some black currant coming through. And again, when you taste it, you'll see that mouthfeel. It actually explodes in the mouth.
Here is the meeting point between what makes Sauvignon Blanc great and what makes your Chenin Blanc great.
The big thing about a Chenin, it's much more approachable because it's got a natural low acidity.
One last of the whites to go, and this one, the KR #8. I don't think that's you being on social media.
So it's exactly the same block. Difference here, it's this one is fermented in barrel and will also obviously be matured in barrel. But a big difference, as I said, is the approachability, the less acidity.
Brimming with tropical fruit, loads of guava and banana and pineapple. 2025 vintage from a white wine definitely has me persuaded. Let's see how the reds go. So on to our junior red winemaker, Mr. Wilhelm. I'll take your cue. What order are we going in here?
We're going to go Pinotage. We believe a good Pinotage needs to see the ocean. So the block is sitting on the outside of the valley. But still Durbanville Hills ward.
Yeah, it is remarkably smooth for something that is as young as it is. I can hardly believe this is 2025. Pinotage is done and it's looking really, really promising, especially if you like that style. It is a little gentler, as many do. What's up for round two?
Merlot.
And this is, after Sauvignon Blanc, your biggest seller. And what would you put that down to? What makes the Merlot of Durbanville Hills as popular as it is?
We're blessed with the climate. Also, the techniques used in the vineyards.
Well, this one's still got a little bit more of a spike to it than the first one, but when you think it's barely weeks old. This one, what's the last one you have for us here?
It's a Malbec. It's from a farm close to Merendal. It's like a mini vineyard. Very good farming techniques.
This is kind of like seeing a 12-year-old A.B. de Villiers and knowing
Yes.
he's going to be great.
Yes,
It's got
exactly.
that to it.
So this will go into barrel within the next 2 weeks, and then we'll see what turns up at the end.
Already we're seeing what so many other winemakers have told me. 25 is looking really, really special. So thank you for confirming this with me. Good luck taking these wines to their next stage.
Cheers.
And I think the only thing missing, I've got terrific wine, I've got great company, I just need a bit of food. For great wine to really come into its own, it needs two things. It needs company and it needs food, and preferably the best of both. Luckily, that's exactly what I have at the Tangram at Durbanville Hills, because the first half of my lunch is a romantic starter with Peter Neal. And what we have here is not just a great dish, but also the opportunity to see that dish through three different lenses. And it's something I'm obsessed with, seeing the same food with different wines, because it tells so many different stories. We have three options. The first of those, unsurprisingly, is a Sauvignon Blanc. Tell me about this Sauvignon Blanc and why you think it's playing off this particular dish.
I think the synergy between food and wine has come so long, and it's really important to understand the different flavors in food and in wine and how they can complement each other. Especially on this Sauvignon Blanc, it's our collector's Cape Mist Sauvignon Blanc, and with a pickled fish cake, that freshness of the Sauvignon Blanc with that little bit of pickleness of the fish cake, it's just that acidity is working really, really well there.
As I look out through the window to Table Mountain, I'm looking across to Cape Town and the Cape Malay culture, which is reflected in this dish so beautifully. So that's one option. You've then got Chenin Blanc. Now, Chenin Blanc does not exist in a form where food does not go with it. I've yet to find a food that cannot be drunk with Chenin Blanc. But what about this one and this dish?
The Chenin is it's really special. It's a Chenin Blanc produced from, let's call it 5 different containers, stainless steel, wood, amphora, but also different yeast and fermentation techniques. So it's 5 different building blocks just bringing into one wine. The freshness of the Chenin Blanc, but also then the structure and the fullness of the Chenin is working really amazing with that fish dish.
All right, you got me excited about 2 already. Then there is the Tangram, shares the name with the restaurant. It's a real flagship project for you guys. On its own, it's fantastic, but it really is the style of wine that is crying out for the right food to go with it.
The Tangram White is a blend of Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon. So you've got that freshness of the Sauvignon Blanc, just like the freshness of the fish, that little bit of pickleness, that little bit of saline minerality on there. But then also the the expressive fruit of the semillon, and then also the aging in the wood.
So there's the winemaker's perspective. What about the chef? Before I dive in, let's jump over to the kitchen.
Okay, so our dish over here is the fish cake. It pairs nicely with the Chenin and the Sauvignon Blanc. It brings out the sourness of the apricot subi that goes with the fish cake. It goes well with the Tangram white to just finish the dish and round it off. So
No surprise, it's fresh and alive and zesty.
24 vintage, we brought in a little bit of oaked Sauvignon Blanc, just softening that freshness, but still keeping it alive.
There are so many elements that speak to this as a pairing, but in particular, the crispness of the wine and that crust on the fish cake. They both have that lovely little crunch to them. Oh, that is good. All right, number 2 was the Chenin.
In this area, due to the climate, it's just bringing a different dimension to Chenin. You've got the beautiful freshness, the elegance of Chenin, but then you've got also the old soils, the granite soils.
All right, then to the big one. This is what I think in Bordeaux they call a Durbanville blend. It's the Sauvignon Semillon. It is amazing whether it's that tiny little splash that some producers use just to iron out a few kinks, or in this case, more of the Semillon. But when they come into balance, they do sing together so beautifully. This is a really, really good illustration for me of how 3 totally different wines can just talk to the same dish in different ways. I love this combination. You've convinced me on all 3, but I need to see that this isn't a once-off dish. So let's try some red wine instead and meet somebody else from the winemaking team. Something of a signature here at Tangram, the pork belly. Tammy, you've got a dish here that's got so many different elements in pork. There's the salinity and the savouriness, there's the richness, there's the accompanying elements around it, and you've got 3 wines to talk to this particular dish. Let's start off with the Pinotage.
The Pinotage is currently coming from the Durbanville Hills Valley. Is a very fruit-forward, very savoury, very subtle, velvety, silky tannins.
Second wine down is the Merlot. This is a wine you sell a lot of in its different spaces. You make it really well. Why are you delivering good Merlot, and what's it going to say to this dish?
So the cooler climate Merlot that's coming from our valley is also very fruit forward. I would like to think stylistically of the Durbanville Hills red wines is much more a nod to old world wine. So where you've got elegance, you've got finesse, you've got fruit forwardness, fruit purity.
It's the Tangram. Now this is statement wine. It's a wine that a lot of time and effort and energy has gone into crafting and to sculpting, which means on its own you've got to take it quite seriously, but it still needs to do a job with my meal. Is it doing that job?
This is a Bordeaux varietal blend. So we've got our Merlot, which is the predominant cultivar in this, but the Tangram changes every year. So in this 2022 vintage, the Merlot performed better than the Cabernet Sauvignon. That's why the bigger portion of this blend is the Merlot. And the Merlot being the lady, it's just something that's very smooth when you enter on your palate. So it's something that's also not going to overpower your dish, but then you've got the structure of the cab there.
So what is becoming apparent is Tammy is not just assistant winemaker, but also group head of food and wine PR. She's done a sterling job. Before I get stuck in, let's see what the chef thinks of these wines in this dish.
So here we've got our pork belly. Pork belly pairs well with the Pinotage, the Merlot, from the pork's natural sweetness and the savoury note of it. And then afterwards you can enjoy the Tangram red just to finish the dish off.
All right, so there's the chef. He sounds pretty confident, not nearly as confident as Tammy, you've sold this big time. I've got very high expectations. I'm going to jump back to that Pinotage. And on its own, very happy to drink that. You can tell it's certainly youthful, but already it's got a really nice savoury range of fruit coming through onto it. It's very much the dish that I look over my shoulder in case my dietitian just happens to be at the same restaurant, because it's so good you almost feel guilty about eating it. I think for the Merlot, there's often a misconception that Merlot should be this big, juicy, bright, full of alarmingly loud and noisy fruit. You've watched Sideways the movie one time too many.
I think almost like the saltiness that's also in your dish, it brings almost like a sweetness out of the wine as well. So then that salt and sweet is just like, yeah.
All right, to the big gun, to the Tangram. You mentioned the Malbec, and that blue fruit is lifting out through it. It's extraordinary how you don't have to be the biggest proportion of a wine to still make a statement within it.
Where the Merlot brings like your voluptuousness, your juiciness, your Cabernet Sauvignon bringing your structure, and then your Malbec just bringing this velvety, like big blue fruit, as you would call it.
All right, the wine is certainly working. Let's try the food. Again, it's a delightful symposium, and as somebody who loves food and wine, and the evidence is here to be seen, I really do take great delight when I see a beautiful wine and a beautiful dish come together like this. So there we go. So ends the adventure here at Durbanville Hills. There is more than just Sauvignon Blanc here. There is more than just wine here. There is the combination of some beautiful expressions of the fruit of this valley, some terrific food here at the restaurant, but I think most importantly for me, whenever I come here, some absolutely wonderful people. I'm already planning my next trip. Cheers.